The stock market just hit its 23rd record high this year, and home prices are peaking right alongside it. If you look at the raw aggregate numbers, the total net worth of America is currently at an all-time high. Yet right in the middle of this statistical golden age, consumer sentiment toward the economy has dropped to the lowest level ever recorded. It is worse today than the depths of the early 1980s recession. It is lower than what people reported during the collapse of the 2008 global financial crisis, and it's even lower than during the peak of the 2020 pandemic lockdowns. You can see this contradiction perfectly inside the average 401k. While average balances just hit a record $160,000, this same year saw a record number of Americans taking penalty-incurring early withdrawals. People are voluntarily paying steep penalties just to access their own cash, because over a third of these withdrawals are being used to avoid eviction, stop a foreclosure, or pay off medical bills. We are constantly told that we are all living in the exact same booming economy, but the data proves that millions of Americans are actually living in entirely separate financial worlds. To understand how this divide actually works, we have to look past the top-line numbers and follow the exact paper trail of who owns these inflating assets. This Federal Reserve data on stock ownership shows the top 10% of wealthiest households own roughly 87% of all equities. Meanwhile, the bottom half, 67 million households, including teachers and nurses, owns a combined total of just 1%. Translate those percentages into actual dollars, and the scale of the gap becomes impossible to ignore. A 16% market return gives the bottom half a paper gain of about $2,000, but that exact same return hands the top 10% nearly $100,000 in new wealth. The stock market boom doesn't lift everyone evenly. The trillions created when the market climbs land directly in specific accounts belonging to a specific ownership class. If the bottom half of the country isn't making money from assets, how exactly is consumer spending still holding up? This graph tracks recent wage data against inflation. Average hourly earnings grew by 3.6%, which sounds solid until you realize inflation rose by 3.8% over the exact same stretch. Before average workers spend a single dollar, they are already losing ground. To make up that difference, the consumer economy is being kept afloat by a record $1.25 trillion in credit card debt. The average interest rate on those cards is sitting at 23%. And according to recent surveys, a third of the people carrying those balances aren't buying luxury items. They are strictly paying for day-to-day expenses. Credit counselors have started calling it survival debt. This borrowing has accelerated so much that over 90 million Americans now use buy now, pay later loans just to afford their weekly groceries. According to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, things have reached a breaking point. The personal savings rate for the bottom 50% of the country has officially turned negative. They are spending more than they bring in after taxes every single month. Millions of households are mathematically sinking in real time, all while subsidizing the appearance of a strong national economy. For years, economists described our financial divide as a K-shaped recovery, but that model no longer fits the reality on the ground. If you want an accurate shape for the modern U.S. economy, you have to look at the letter E. Start by taking the top bar and stretching it far out to the right. This represents the top 10%. Their net worth has absolutely exploded, fueled by soaring stock portfolios and home prices that have jumped 55% since 2020. Now push the bottom bar low to the floor. These are the 67 million households trapped in survival debt, financing their groceries with a negative savings rate. Finally, take the middle bar and tilt it downward. This represents the middle class. Their breathing room is vanishing, forcing them to abandon premium grocery stores for discount warehouses just to maintain their standard of living. This structure has left the top 10% holding 68% of the total net worth in the country, while the bottom half of Americans fight over the remaining 2.5%. This widening structural gap explains exactly why the positive news headlines never seem to line up with the reality of your bank account. If you add up all the wealth in the country and put it on a single chart, you will absolutely see a booming economy. But those aggregate lines pointing up and to the right ignore who is actually holding the money. When we look at the economy today, We can no longer afford to ask if it is booming. We have to ask exactly who owns the boom.